He proposed with tears in his eyes, but that's not where the story really began. It started with a flickering light and the faint smell of burnt coffee. The sign above her small bookstore kept shorting out, buzzing like a trapped fly every time the rain hit the wires. I was there to fix it, the quiet kid from the repair shop down the street. She was the woman behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned carelessly like she'd been too busy to care. When I walked in, she looked up from her ledger, eyes squinting as if she had to place me. Or maybe she was deciding if I looked old enough to be trusted with a ladder. "You're from Garrison Repairs?" she asked, voice smooth but firm. I nodded. "Yeah, the light outside keeps shorting. So it's not just the universe," she murmured, almost to herself. That was the first time I saw her half smile, the kind people wear when they've already been disappointed by too much. I started working on the sign, the ladder wobbling slightly on the wet pavement. The rain had turned into a drizzle, soft and persistent. Through the shop window, I could see her rearranging a stack of old paperbacks, her hand brushing the dust from each spine as if every book mattered. There was something steady about her, the kind of calm that made you aware of your own fidgeting. When I came back inside to tell her it was done, she handed me a towel. "You're soaked." "Here." "Thanks," I said, wringing the edge of my sleeve. She hesitated, then added, "You can wait inside until the rain slows. The roof leaks, but it's better than outside." I remember the way she said it. Practical, not kind, yet somehow both. The shop smelled like paper and something faintly citrus, maybe her perfume or the cleaner she used. I tried not to look at her too long, but it was hard not to notice the small things. The silver ring she twisted when she was thinking, the faint laugh lines that deepened when she smiled, even though she didn't smile often. She made 2 cups of coffee and handed me one without asking how I liked it. It was bitter, strong, exactly how I imagined hers would be. "What are you studying?" she asked suddenly. I blinked. "Sorry, you've got that look. Like someone trying to remember a formula while pretending to be an adult." I laughed, more out of nerves than humor. "I dropped out last year. Haven't figured out what I'm doing yet." She nodded slowly, not pitying, not judging, just seeing. "Then you're already ahead of most." There was a quiet that followed, not awkward exactly, but charged. Like something hovered between us that neither of us had invited. I noticed her fingers tapping against the rim of her mug, a rhythm she didn't seem aware of. When our eyes met, she stopped. I looked away first. After a moment, she stood. "You should go before the rain starts again." "Yeah," I said, though I didn't move right away. Outside, the light I'd fixed flickered once, then glowed steady, pale blue against the damp evening. I turned back and saw her standing by the window, watching the sign like it was something more than a bulb and a wire. She caught me looking, and for a second, neither of us smiled. Just paused. There was no reason for that moment to stay with me. But later that night, I found myself replaying the way she'd said, "Then you're already ahead of most." It wasn't what she said. It was the way it made me feel like she knew something about me I hadn't figured out yet. And that's where it really began. It was 2 weeks before I saw her again. The bookstore's light was still holding, my handiwork, steady and soft, but she called the shop about a flickering heater this time. Her voice on the phone was polite, almost detached. I don't think she recognized my name when she made the request. Or maybe she did, and just pretended not to. When I arrived, she was restocking shelves, standing on a small wooden stool. The sleeves of her sweater were pushed to her elbows, exposing the faint crease of a wristwatch tan, though she wasn't wearing one. "You again," she said, stepping down carefully. "Guess I'm keeping you in business." "Guess so," I replied, setting down my toolbox. The heater was an old unit tucked near the reading corner, half hidden by a sagging armchair and a crooked poster of Hemingway. As I crouched to check the wires, she walked around the shop with the quiet precision of someone used to doing everything alone. Every few minutes, she'd pause, glance my way, then look off quickly, as if remembering something she didn't want to. "Long day?" I asked without thinking. She gave a short laugh, dry and low. "Long year." I looked up from the heater. "Sorry. Don't be." "Just," she sighed, pressing her thumb to the bridge of her nose. "Some days I forget who I'm supposed to be in front of people." It caught me off guard, the honesty of it. For a moment, she wasn't composed or distant, She just looked tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that lives in the bones. I wanted to say something, anything, but the right words didn't come. Instead, I just nodded and went back to the heater. When it finally hummed to life, she came over to check it. She stood close enough that I could smell her perfume again, faint, familiar, like the inside of an old book. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for the switch. It wasn't deliberate, just a small, unthinking touch, but it felt like a spark jumped somewhere between my ribs. She froze for half a second, not in surprise, but in restraint. Then she pulled her hand back, folded her arms, and gave a small, polite smile. "Thank you. How much do I owe you?" I told her it was already covered under the last repair. It wasn't, but I didn't care. She hesitated, maybe to argue, but instead said quietly, "You're kind." That's unusual. The way she said unusual made me wonder how long it had been since someone was kind to her without expecting something back. I packed up my tools, trying not to glance at her again. But when I reached the door, I couldn't help it. She was standing by the counter, tracing her finger absent-mindedly along the rim of her coffee mug, lost somewhere far away. Before I left, she looked up and said, almost softly, "Don't fix too much around here. I'll run out of reasons to call." The heater clicked on again behind me, warm and steady, but the air between us was anything but. The rain came down hard that evening, the kind that blurred headlights and made every street hum like a secret. Her bookstore should have been closed hours ago, but the light was still on when I passed by. Through the fog glass, I could see her sitting behind the counter, a cup of tea untouched, her gaze fixed on something that wasn't there. I don't know what made me stop. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was that she looked lonelier than I'd ever seen her. When I pushed the door open, a small bell chimed, and she startled, then softened when she saw me. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," she said. "Neither should you." She smiled faintly. "The roof leaks again." That was reason enough. I grabbed the small ladder from the back and climbed up, tightening bolts I'd already fixed weeks ago. Rain pattered against the window panes. She handed me a flashlight, her fingers brushing mine again, not by accident this time, I think. "You always show up right when things break," she murmured. I tried to joke it off. "Guess I'm reliable." Her expression shifted, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. That's dangerous. People start to depend on reliable things. I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. The name flashed only for a second, David. She turned the phone face down. "Sorry," she said, voice tight. "No problem." But the silence that followed wasn't comfortable anymore. It was heavy, threaded with things I didn't understand yet. The rain grew louder, drowning out everything but our breathing. She moved closer to the window, watching the downpour. I joined her without meaning to. Our reflections stood side by side, her posture composed, mine uncertain. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked quietly. She looked at me, surprised. "Leaving what?" "This place. Whatever keeps you here." Her lips parted like she wanted to answer, but then she shook her head. "Some things you don't leave. You just learn to live with them." I nodded, pretending to understand. But I didn't, not really. The power flickered, and for a moment, the shop fell into darkness. She gasped softly, her hand instinctively catching my arm. Just for balance, just a moment. But it felt like everything I'd been holding back pressed forward all at once. When the light returned, she didn't move her hand right away. We both noticed that, and that was the problem. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she stepped back, almost too quickly. "You should go before it gets worse outside." I stood there for a second, rainwater dripping from my jacket, her touch still burning on my sleeve. "I will," I said, but my voice came out lower than I meant. She looked at me, not unkindly, not coldly, just knowing. Like we both understood that something had almost happened. But not tonight. Not yet. For 2 weeks, we didn't see each other. The rain stopped, the streets dried, and the sign outside her shop flickered like nothing had ever happened. But something had. I could feel it every time I passed that corner and forced myself to keep walking. Then one evening, my boss handed me another work order, her address again. The water heater this time. I thought about saying no. I didn't. When I got there, she was standing by the counter, arms folded, as if she'd been expecting me but wasn't sure how to start. You can go downstairs, she said quietly. The pilot light keeps going out. I nodded, took the steps into the small basement. She followed after a few minutes, holding a flashlight. Her light fell across the concrete walls, the dripping pipes, my hands fumbling with the wrench. The space was small, too small, and our words kept dying before they reached the air. Finally, she broke it. I didn't call anyone else, she said, almost defensive. I didn't ask, I replied. I know. She leaned against the wall, exhaling through her nose. You make it difficult to keep things simple. I froze. You mean fixing things? She gave a faint, tired laugh. You know that's not what I mean. The heater clicked softly beside us, but neither of us looked at it. I keep thinking about that night, I said before I could stop myself. The storm. The light. Don't. She interrupted, voice low. Please. I turned toward her anyway. Why not? Because I already think about it more than I should. That silenced me. She rubbed her thumb against her ring finger, the one where a mark still showed from a ring long gone. You're young, she said finally. And I'm not old, I said. That's not the point. She swallowed, staring at the floor. You'll move on. You'll meet people your age. You'll stop dropping by this broken bookstore pretending it's about wiring or pipes. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but all that came out was, I don't think I'm pretending. That made her look at me. Really look. Her eyes softened, but her face didn't. This isn't something that can go anywhere, she said, voice trembling just enough for me to notice. You understand that, don't you? I nodded, though I didn't. Then why does it feel like it already has? Silence filled the space, thick and impossible. The heater hissed softly. The flashlight between us flickered once. She stepped closer, not close enough to touch, just enough that I could see the faint tremor in her jaw. Because, she whispered, some things don't need to happen to ruin you. And just like that, she turned off the flashlight, leaving me in the dim hum of the heater, my own heartbeat too loud. I didn't follow her up the stairs. I couldn't. I didn't expect to see her again. But that's how these things happen. Not with planning, just with timing that feels almost cruel. It was a Sunday morning, early, gray and half awake. I'd stopped by a small cafe near the shop for coffee before a job. And there she was, sitting by the window, alone, flipping through an old photo album. She didn't notice me at first. Her hair was slightly undone, her face softer without the armor she usually wore. I could have walked past. I should have, but I didn't. When she looked up, there was a flicker, surprise, then something else. You still fixing things? She asked. Trying to, I said, sliding into the chair across from her before she could object. The album lay open between us, glossy prints, old handwriting in the margins. The kind of photos that had weight, that remembered more than the people in them wanted to. I pointed at one. Your family. She hesitated. My son. The words hit harder than I expected. There was a small boy in the picture, maybe 8 or 9, standing next to a man who wasn't in any other photo after that. Her hand brushed the page lightly, tracing the boy's face. He's 25 now, she said softly. Lives in Boston. He doesn't call much. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. He used to come to the shop after school, she went on, voice steady but faint. Help me sort the shelves. He'd stack the books by color, not author. Said it looked happier that way. She smiled, the smallest one I'd ever seen from her, then closed the album. You remind me of him sometimes, she said suddenly. That sentence lingered in the air, raw and complicated. I wanted to ask how, but she was already shaking her head. Not in the way you think. It's the way you look at people, like you still expect something good from them. I didn't know what to do with that, the comparison, the confession tucked inside it. So I just said quietly, and you don't. She looked out the window. I stopped expecting. That's how you survive things. A pause stretched between us, long enough for the sound of rain to start tapping the glass again. When the barista brought her check, she pushed it toward me. You don't owe me anything, I said. I know, she replied. That's why I want to pay. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached for her wallet. Not from age, from something deeper, something breaking loose inside her. Then, almost as an afterthought, she said, when my husband left, I told myself I'd never let anyone make me wait for something again. Her eyes met mine, steady, unblinking. And yet here I am. I didn't breathe for a moment. She gathered her album, stood, and walked out before I could say a word. The chair across from me stayed warm for a long time after she was gone. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. Her bookstore had a closed sign in the window, but the door was unlocked. The lights were dim, the air still. She was sitting on the floor near the back, surrounded by half-packed boxes. A mug of cold tea sat beside her, untouched. "I thought you moved," I said quietly from the doorway. "Almost did," she replied. Then I realized I didn't know where to go. I stepped inside, the creak of the floorboards breaking the silence. She didn't look up right away, just kept folding a piece of brown paper around an old hardcover, her movements too careful, like if she slowed down enough, she could make time behave. "Business slowing?" I asked. "Life slowing," she said. Then, after a beat, "You shouldn't keep showing up here." "I know." "Then why do you?" I didn't have an answer that sounded right, so I said nothing. The clock above the counter ticked softly. Somewhere outside, wind brushed against the glass, carrying the faint sound of passing cars. Finally, she sighed. "You remind me of everything I used to wait for." Her voice cracked on the last word, barely audible. I moved closer, crouching beside her. "And what if I've been waiting for you?" She exhaled slowly, not surprise, not anger, just resignation. "Don't say things like that. It makes it real." I didn't. I just sat there, beside her, the two of us framed by boxes and dust and the faint hum of a heater that never worked right. "After a long time," she said, "I used to think love was a promise. Something you made once and kept forever. Now I think it's just showing up, even when you shouldn't." She looked at me then, not with longing, but with something gentler, something almost holy in its exhaustion. I reached out, not to take her hand, but to steady the corner of the paper she was folding. Our fingers brushed, stayed. Neither of us moved away this time. The moment didn't need words. It didn't need a name. It was what it was, quiet, real, almost painful in its honesty. She leaned forward slightly, resting her forehead against mine. A gesture so small I might have missed it if my heart hadn't stopped when she did it. "Don't wait for me," she whispered. "I'm not," I said, though we both knew I was. We stayed there like that, two people who tried not to want something, and failed gently. When she finally pulled away, she gave a soft, tired smile. "Some things aren't meant to last," she said. "But that doesn't mean they weren't real." I nodded. "Yeah." The light above us flickered once, then steadied, a quiet mercy. And for the first time, neither of us tried to fix it. It's been a year since the bookstore closed. I still pass that street sometimes, out of habit, not hope. The windows covered now, the sign gone, the space rented to a florist who fills it with color and life. Sometimes, when I walk by, I swear I still smell old paper and citrus. Maybe memory does that. Keeps pieces of what you can't let go in the air, just faint enough to feel real. I never saw her again after that night. She didn't leave a note, not even a forwarding address. Just disappeared like she'd finally done what she'd been threatening to all along, moved on. But she left behind something that I didn't notice right away, a quiet steadiness that wasn't there before. Back then, I thought love had to be declared, that it needed words, proof, a name. But she taught me something different, that sometimes love is restraint. It's not about taking, it's about knowing when not to. It's the silence that asks nothing but lingers anyway. For a while, I tried to forget her. I dated, I traveled, I worked longer hours, convincing myself I'd learned the lesson and could move on cleanly. But healing doesn't come with distance, it comes with understanding. She wasn't the one that got away. She was the one who reminded me how to stay honest, to stay open, to stay awake to what's real even when it hurts. And maybe that's why it mattered. Some nights, I replay that final moment, her forehead against mine, the sound of the heater clicking softly in the dark. There was no promise, no confession, no kiss. Just two people meeting exactly where life had worn them thin and still daring to be kind. That kind of connection doesn't fade. It changes shape, sure. It softens. It finds quieter corners of your memory to live in. But it never leaves completely. I don't think she ever wanted to be loved again, not in the way I loved her. I think she just wanted to be seen, to exist without needing to explain herself. Maybe that's what I gave her. And maybe, without realizing it, she gave me the same thing. If I ever do see her again, years from now, across some street or in another city, I won't say anything. I'll just smile, the way you do when you recognize someone from a dream that changed you. Because some people don't belong to our future, they belong to the moment that taught us who we could be. And if that's all it ever was, then it was enough.